welcome in Brian Goulding from Rhinegeist Brewing Company out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We are staying cross country and having a really good time doing it. Rhinegeist, fabulous brewery that we really look up to at Hen House, and it looks like I'm being joined by Bryant now.
How's it going, Bob?
Hi. Bryant, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on and joining us for this big chicken in place, 5 o'clock everywhere, extravaganza. And
making me thirsty.
Exactly. Hey, by all means, I'm still enjoying some Virginia beer right now. You're enjoying some Santa Rosa beer. I believe that is Inside Job right there. Fantastic. How is that beer treating you, first off?
I am loving it. Simcoe and Eldorado are giving each other a bear hug.
Yeah.
Dankness, little cannabis. Nice little beer for a Saturday.
Oh, fantastic.
You mentioned the last beer that we made. We collaborated together a couple of years ago. I got to drink that. Luckily, we were out. I don't know why I was in San Francisco, but the Toronado had it on draft. I didn't know this ahead of time. Anytime I'm in San Francisco, I go back to the Toronado. I try to.
Gots to.
And I draft there, which was like just a great spot, great moment, and great beer. That was a session IPA.
Yeah. It was a great beer and a great name because we have, as the Inside Job can in your hand points out, we have a lot of fun with conspiracy theories, but it's also important to live a life grounded in reality and getting back to primary sources. You can't base your life on what some guy on the internet heard from his cat in a dream one time. You got to get down to some researched, peer-reviewed, agreed-upon consensus reality, which is actually what Inside Job talks about. Maybe after we're done, get a magnifying glass. You can read all of the fine print written on the side of that can, and it'll tell you a whole story about the importance of not letting your noodle tell you about things that aren't really real.
Can't wait.
But you guys, Cincy made, you self-distribute, you move a lot of beer. Tell me about Rhinegeist.
Rhinegeist Brewery is a brewery that we founded in Cincinnati in 2013. So just about 8 years ago. We'll turn 8 in June of this year, the end of June. The name goes to the Rhine. Cincinnati was a great brewing town. There were 40 or 50 breweries before Prohibition in the town, and they were known for the highest per capita drinking in the nation at that time. A lot of German immigrants came through Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and out the river, out to Cincinnati, and a lot of brewery buildings were built. We are housed in what was the bottling plant for Christian Moorline Brewing, which was producing 300,000 barrels before Prohibition. Prohibition came and the brand shut down. But we're in a 120,000 square foot big brick building with 45-foot ceilings and skylights, and it's a pretty magical place to brew beer. In 2013, we wanted to make an impact and bring some energy and passion to the Ohio and Midwest beer scene. I had spent time in San Francisco. My partner had lived in New York and San Francisco as well. We picked up a brewer from New York, but had been brewing at Sun King in Indiana and set up their quality control lab and put together a plan of attack on brewing hoppy beers and a whole lot of others to bring people together in this awesome brewery and celebrate that fine tradition of making great beer and enjoying life together.
And y'all don't discriminate. You make cider too.
We do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This is something I bug every out-of-state brewery about. Are you allowed to do that with your brewery license, or do you guys have a separate cider making, or if you were in California, it'd be a winemaker's license too?
Yeah, there's a specific winemaker's license where you can make wine up to, I think it's 7 or 9%. So it's basically a cider license, though it's not called that. Right. So we have a license. I studied abroad in London and really fell in love with cider with character. And,
sure.
We started with a semi-dry and a dry hopped cider that was bone dry, and I think we dry hopped that with I'm going to draw a blank. I think it was Citra, and that didn't play so well. So now we're back with some kind of flavored ciders. Semi-dry has been renamed as Zappy, and we've got a lemongrass ginger cider called Swizzle, and then we've got Bee and Bloom and elderflower cider. and a whole leg of our program. We like cider for, people that are looking for something lighter. You can't drink hops all the time. You can also drink pilsners, which we love, but there's something a little bit different about that character and that feel from a cider.
It's really neat to play with both those different things and then be able to offer that in your tap rooms. And I almost said offer that to your distribution partners, but y'all are your distribution partners, much like us. How important is self-distribution to you? Was that just a convenient way of starting out, or is it more like kind of with us, it's got a little bit of a control freak element to it where we don't want to trust our beer as much to folks? Nowadays, we're working with a couple of people and we're happy to be doing that. But I think definitely when Henhouse was starting out, doing it ourselves was the only way to do what we were trying to do.
Yeah, it was. My background was in selling beer through wholesalers. I managed 18 wholesalers in 5 states for Dogfish Head and really enjoyed that business planning. And there's the distribution connection to the customers that are going to sell the beer to your final customer is really critical. So when we started, we were really convinced that Sun King, they had such a great presence and relationship with their customers in Indianapolis. And that was where Jim Matt, our head brewer, had come from. And what's the worst that could happen? We fall flat on our face, we don't get there, and then we talk to a wholesaler. But there's the direct connection of telling your own story and managing your own draft problems, managing your own freshness, and really building the brand with people that stand for your brewery. And we try to treat our employees as best we can and embrace the human side of our business. We get to sell beer for a living. It's fantastic, and we hope that shines through to that final mile, so that you've got people out there caring not just for a sale to hit a number, but that passing that cultural torch. And we're control freaks. We like to hold ourselves accountable to a lot of mistakes, fixing mistakes quickly. We've got a lot of people shouting stuff out on weekends. That's kind of the tradition when you do it yourself. There's a lot of mopping up that happens, but
absolutely
wholesale partners. But I think we set a good standard internally for doing it in our backyard. We do close to 350,000 cases in Cincinnati, and then another 250 plus in Columbus. So we have 2 warehouses, 2 teams. And that's such a key part of our business, and it gives us feedback quickly, and it forces us to reconcile with challenging things like, we're the first to know about things, and what are we going to do about it? Trends in the market, and we get regular feedback through an innovation thread from all of their sales team out there. We try and do the same thing with distributors, but it's kind of a game. So with monthly field calls, we get a lot of feedback from our sales team out there that we can parse through that we wouldn't necessarily if we weren't self-distributing.
Absolutely. Yeah. You really are able to keep your finger on the pulse of things when you're doing it yourself. Same thing with freshness windows, cold chain, things that are so important to us and so important to beer quality. When it's you and it's your team, you can absolutely guarantee that stuff is getting executed. And if you're running into things where it's, your standards are too complicated, or if you're trying to do something that's not achievable, you're going to find out, because it's your folks on the ground telling you, hey man, you want me to be 6 feet tall, but I'm only 5'5", and this is it. It just cannot be done. And that's so great to keep that kind of stuff in house. That allows you to step back, refigure things, rejigger things. A little trivia question about Rhinegeist that I've always been wondering about, because with Henhouse, when people say, why are you guys Henhouse? What's up with Henhouse? That gives me and other people on our team a moment to educate about the chicken culture of the city of Petaluma, where our brand was born. If no one from Petaluma asks us why we're Henhouse, but the further away you get from Petaluma, the more people ask that question. Something that I've always wondered is, do lots of Cincinnati folks, lots of broader Ohio folks, are they up on the Spirit of the Rhine concept, the history of that area? They're like, oh yeah, Rhinegeist, of course, I totally get it. Or do you guys have an opportunity to perhaps educate local folks about the history of their own backyard?
Cincinnati has done a really great job of preserving architecture in Over the Rhine, the neighborhood that we're in. And the Rhine refers to a canal that was built that ran all the way up into the Great Lakes, and a lot of goods down. And across that Rhine, that canal, was a lot of German immigrants and a lot of breweries and a lot of bars. And so you cross the Rhine into this German village, basically. The street signs were all in German until World War I, and then changing them. But
that got a lot less popular.
Yeah, not so much at that moment. But I think Cincinnati loves its history and loves its beer. And so we were connected to the history literally with the skeleton of the building that we were breathing life back into, but also the point for, a city that's not, it's a flyover city for a lot of America, but it's a really great city with a lot of heart and a lot of pride. And so I think we've breathed some life into that as a modern brand. Our design is not heritage looking, but every day we walk into a building where brewers brewed in the 1800s. And so there's this magic balance to that. I always get struck and excited, walking into a bar and seeing the tap handle is a fantastic thing. That never gets old. But seeing t-shirts on people in Williamsburg, New York, or walking up a hill in Seattle, I saw a guy that ran a bar and some of his customers just gave him a Rhinegeist hoodie because they love this brand. And I think that's the exciting piece of, putting Cincinnati on the map for we stand for quality, we stand for creativity, innovation, passion for your craft, and we are Cincy. We're Cincy made. There's many other brands, other going on. P&G is based here. Kroger's based here. There's a lot of action, but we're one little slice in our little corner of the neighborhood that was a bit dicey when we got there, and certainly a decade before. And now people are thriving in the streets and coming out and celebrating and drinking in these old brewery buildings that were built over 100 years ago. So I feel like we're using the attraction that people have to beer in breathing life into this part of the neighborhood, and therefore part of the city that just had been kind of echoes for a long time.
Right. The way brewing can revitalize an area and teach people something about the area they're in is such a beautiful thing. Speaking of talking about history and education, y'all under Mr. Shields have a very formidable education program. The Cicerone tests, the Cicerone organization, which is something I talk a lot about. And we actually have all of the company Cicerones on the show here today. When you dial in Rhinegeist into the Cicerone directory, you get 401 hits. And I'm pretty dang sure no other brewery can boast that. If there's someone else pushing harder than that, I literally haven't heard of them, and I try and stay up on these things. Tell me about that educational piece.
Well, I mean, I think beer is a language in a way. We love our product.
Absolutely.
We care about it. If you are anywhere close to a brewery, you get the perspective that everything's always breaking all of the time. So it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in making a consistent product and getting it out there mechanically. But we wanted to use our brand to educate our customers. So we were pretty clear about ABV, IBU, style, and what hops were going into things. And we just wanted that readily available. And we wanted our staff, from the people that actually interface with our team, so sales and event staff and tour guides and behind the bar, but also the guys that are just, we fixed our ladder ton rakes that went down this morning. I at the brewery. That's a really intense fix of a job. We've got a team of 7. They swarmed on it, and it was up and operational before I hopped on the show. So those guys appreciating in a way and speaking that language of beer is important, instead of just working for this company where I can't even keep track of the styles. We're creating a system where people have a foundational baseline to talk about beer. Oh, that's a mild, or, oh, that's an imperial mild, which is not really a style, but you get it because mild is. So we require in their first year of employment to take the Cicerone test. And then we have classes that Shields pushes through for waves of seniority, where you take a Cicerone test and you get to level 2. I don't know a total number, but I think we were approaching 60 of level 2 Cicerones. So a lot of our management And that keeps, we're a business and we're very strategic and talking about a lot of things that aren't beer as a business does, but we always want to come back to that flame. And that's why we're here. And, everybody, including my dad, who's a tour guide at the brewery, is, not the most technologically savvy dude, but passes Cicerone test on his phone after some nudging.
Yes.
And I feel like it makes it a better place and a better place for us to educate our consumers, for sure.
Yeah.
Great program.
It's, it's amazing the commitment you guys have made and what you guys have achieved with that. Saying that as a guy trying to affect some of those same things at our company, it's challenging to kind of inspire people who work a long day doing whatever crucially important job they do to be like, yeah, man. And then, before you clock out, if you could maybe read this for a little while, or, if you find some time this weekend while you're trying to enjoy your life, maybe log in and take this multiple choice test and do things like that. It's really neat to see it work. I mean, y'all inspire me. I'm seeing that and I'm like, all right, Chris Shields pulled this off. There's got to be a way I can figure this out. And that involves, meeting people where they are, understanding all the different types of folks that you bring into your brewery, because a cellarman is different than a barback, is different than a logistics technician. You have all of these different people with different backgrounds. Older folks running the tour program, that's a different kind of personality too. And getting everyone through that so they can learn that kind of shared language of quality, understanding what a mild is, allows you to understand how interesting it is to have something called an imperial mild is so cool. And I can't applaud you guys more on doing that. It's something I point out to other breweries too.
Awesome. We love hearing that. And that's, we're geeks.
Yeah.
Bob and I, us on the team. And there's a kind of a yin and yang between just kicking back and having fun, which beer is great for that sport. But it's also, creates a shared language with 300 people in our company doing so vastly different things and spread out geographically over now 8 states. That is hard to put your finger on. It's just people and their interactions and our values and how we treat each other collectively. It gives you an in. So if you don't know that person, beer is a way, and then you have this baseline language to have a conversation with someone that works with you, but you don't really know well, over beer. And it doesn't have to be literally over beer. Question about beer, or you're slapping a label on a keg. What the heck is a fruited Berliner Weiss? And somebody's going to know, or you should know after your first year. So it's a real kind of sinew that keeps us together and focused on the prize, which is beer. And the greatness of beer is something, if you stray from that, I think you've lost your way as a brewery.
Definitely. You hate to see a brewery try and turn into a fashion brand or something different and lose track of the idea that it's about the beer. That's what brings everybody together and brings everyone out here. Now you and your partner met out in my neck of the woods, out in Northern California, right? Y'all bumped into each other in San Francisco. And then before that, you were with the legendary Anderson Valley Brewing Company for a while. Up in Mendocino, the House of Goza that launched Goza darn across everywhere. What were some of the things that you brought with your previous brewing experience to getting to that kind of helped give birth to Rhinegeist? Experience with other breweries. Yeah.
I mean, the nuts and bolts of business planning and a sense of how brands stood out, the brewing community and the competitive intensity of the Bay Area in the 2000s was really incredible to watch. Right. Firestone coming on the scene for the first time ever, Lagunitas really surging. Storied brands, Sierra, New Belgium have always had a presence. San Francisco is one of those global cities where if you're you better be it. Magnolia coming up, this is before you guys. So
definitely,
I learned a lot about how hard it was to sell beer in wine country.
I think
people's to take it seriously. I think it's different now, but I think it was pretty intensely, not cutthroat in a harsh way, but it was certainly, you had to have a business plan, you had to target accounts, and you had to be serious about how you wanted to manage your portfolio. I learned that, but I also really saw some of these brands like Russian River, and you guys, Cellar Maker, as soon as they came on the scene, it was a sort of je ne sais quoi or energy that they had, that it was about a focus on beer, but also like they're having fun. Like by embracing this brand, I'm having more fun, and I'm investing in someone's career who makes this stuff happen, and it's a virtuous cycle. So I think California was really just ahead of the maturation curve, and it was a beautiful place. The Tornado promoting barley wine events, and the event game was really then, and just the use of hops. And I mean, I watched Lagunitas talk about how they saw potential in Oregon because there's so much Black Butte Porter was being drunk up there, and no one drank hoppy beer, and they figured, hoppy beer, why wouldn't they up in the Pacific Northwest? And it became a nice brand relative to people in Oregon. Don't love California. They didn't even back then, before they're buying up all the real estate, but it's a real strong footprint up there. So there are little nuances about, going to the Midwest. Let's be hop forward, but then have a balanced portfolio. And that West Coast vibe. I grew up in Connecticut, and I got out to San Francisco and would walk through places like Bryant Market or farmers markets and like pick up Romanesco for the first time, and the flavors of food and Vietnamese and great Indian food and the burrito magic. Everyone's got their favorite food. Francisco is a really special thing to me. And I also think it's just an era when you're in your 20s and you're riding your bike around a city that has so many tantalizing design features, culture features, everything's going on. Silicon Valley's down there. It was just this creative broth where you couldn't help but just have coffee and have an interesting conversation. I took some of that and wanted to recreate that vibe in Cincinnati. We have long 20+ foot tables where you force people to kind of not currently, but when we get back to normal, rub elbows and ask a question like, what is that red beer you're drinking? Or what's that purple thing? You're actually bridging the gap. And I think the breweries that did a great job of that, Magnolia, the brew pub on Haight, was just a fantastic, awesome brew pub that transported you back to London. It felt like. And so a lot of that just kind of soft, directional, cultural brand sense that it was a framework for how we wanted to present ourselves when we got to the Midwest, which was receptive.
Clearly it's been working out, and that's wonderful. So you mentioned, like all of us, we used to enjoy on-premise experiences and on-premise accounts. How have you guys been holding up with the various COVID curveballs that keep getting hurled at every brewery everywhere?
We are surviving, I would say. I think we were shut down for about 2 months, which we just never pictured would happen. It was, necessary nationally, it looked like. Everyone's now required to wear masks. We pivoted as many people we could into different roles as the businesses shifted. And we're sanitizing tables and we're doing everything we can, but we're at I'd say 40% of what sales were. I think a lot of people are just choosing to stay at home and be really safe until there's a better scenario out there. So we respect that. So I'd say that culture thing is really hard when you can't gather around the water cooler and have a beer after work. But, the resilience of people is also powerful. So we tried to stay in touch with our teams and make sure that through the waves of paranoia and what do we do when there is not an outbreak, but a case, and how do we trace this back? And so much unknown and so much existential angst, thinking back to spring of last year. And then we've kind of broken down processes so that we're not doing shift turnovers with 12 people in the same room. Everything's spread out. We've got conveyors where we're not loading the trucks, handing beer from one person to the next. We're just sending it down a 10-foot line so that there's just more space throughout the brewery. And it's been a challenge, but again, an opportunity for some of that supportiveness to happen. We're packaging more beer than we ever have. Can shortages are a new threat. It's never a dull moment in the beer industry, but I think we'll be stronger for it. And I'm really proud of how our team has kind of banded together to help problem solve and help out different departments that were more hard hit than others. But really, I think this will be the most nationally, globally, the most similar positive shock to freedom than, like, I don't know, going off to college. Like, you can now just go and do whatever you want instead of thinking how complicated, how many people are there, how close they're going to be. That level of freedom and that just spike is going to be incredible for breweries that make this sauce that is exciting and helps bring people together. So I'm hopeful that on the other end of this, there's a renewed value of the human connection. Because as awesome as this is, I'd rather be slapping you on the back and laughing in person. And I think that value is all too clear at this point.
Right. Yeah. Everyone misses the homies. Everyone is on team. I want to hug the homies. And yeah, I mean, this is how we're pivoting. Thank you for joining us in this pivot. Thank you for collaborating with us on Primary Source a while back. As I got the legend of that beer, it was a bit of a Hail Mary because y'all had brought a lot of your team out into our area, I believe, to celebrate people hitting a certain level of seniority with your brewery. And
5-year trip.
Yeah, the 5-year trip. It's so exciting.
You guys are great. We, you weren't there when I lived in San Francisco. Hen House wasn't around. I know her pretty well. He was opening, down in Monk's Kettle.
Yep.
With the cab, teaching me a lot about crazy beers that I never tried before. And it's been a long, beautiful journey. We really love what you guys have done. And we try and send people back to California to get that vibe because it's so much we try and have it be part of our brand. It's not, there's no science to it. It's just sort of you effort it out. But really appreciate you having me here and celebrating the big chicken.
Oh, this is so fantastic, Bryant. Thank you all so much for your time. Please keep on keeping it Cincy. Please keep on educating your crew, self-distroing. What do folks have to look forward to from Rhinegeist this coming 2021?
Good question. We've got a new cider, like I was talking about, those cider flavors program are rolling out, and I'm working on 22 stuff. So what's happening this year? Sure. We have a series called Cloud Harvest, which I love. It's an unfiltered juicy IPA. This is the 4th. It's called Tamarama, and the spirit of it is basically the juicy hop forward flavors. We dry hop the heck out of this. We primary hop it. We use Conan and it just sings tropical island somewhere. So we try and put something on there. Tamarama has Sabro Galaxy, Vic Secret, and Cascade that takes you away to these places like this beach, Tamarama. They call it Glamorama in Australia. And so more of that. I can't get enough of it. And we're just hopeful that, by the end of this year, we're serving fun again and not just clearly defined experiences with your closest of friends in the tap room.
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much for your time.